One common question asked to Hindus is, how do you measure what is right and wrong? Where is your rule book? And how do you define what morality is? Jews and Christians have their holy books which describe the various do's and don'ts. Chapters such as Leviticus provide detailed accounts of how one should act. Islam has Sharia law and vast bodies of writings describing in the minutest detail how the Prophet Muhammad acted. The followers of these faiths turn to these texts written thousands of years ago to decide how they should act in today's world. One important problem with this is that scripture does not have answers to every moral dilemma. And another problem is, followers can often struggle to justify these laws when faced with modern day values.
I'm going to ask you for a fourth time, is it wrong that the Quran says husbands can beat their wives?
It depends which context you take it in.
Okay, which context is it okay for a husband to beat their wife?
It's never okay.
Well, you just said it depends which context it is.
Those of no faith, however, by and large take their values from current culture. There is no objective foundational standard of right and wrong. The things we choose, the decisions we make, are largely a product of what the rest of society is doing. But with no moral base, there is a danger that we can get swept away like a leaf in the wind. Hollywood and Bollywood pop culture can arouse fantasies in our mind of what we should strive for and what our life should look like. Social media pumps out endless opinions and ideas which invade our minds. Politicians lay down policies that block and allow us certain freedoms. So what do Hindus have? Hindus do have scripture, and they do have certain regulative principles which vary amongst the traditions. They also have the words and commentaries of the various acharyas and masters. But all of this serves to do one thing. It serves to take us towards Dharma. Dharma puts forward that in any given situation, there is always a precise and right way to act. There is an objective moral code which is dependent on the context we are in. The Vedas and Rishis state that woven into the universe is an inherent divine cosmological order. This is known as Rita. The seasons changing, the movement of nature, the stars and planets are all held together by this divine force. There is an intelligence at work that makes things happen. Dharma is all about acting in accordance with this intelligence. It is about acting in line with the will of God. But knowing how to do this is no easy task. In fact, one of the central messages of the Mahabharata is that Dharma is sukshma, or subtle. Different characters are placed in different situations, and we are made to question and contemplate on what true dharmic behaviour is. The lesson is, the eternal truths of who you are in relation to God never changes. But nature and things do change and evolve. As a result, behaviour and the expression of morality will vary according to time and place. We should understand Dharma is not like dogmatic religion, which seeks to easily answer everything through chapter and verse, nor is it about blindly being conditioned by modern culture. Dharma is about finding and living in accordance with your divine purpose. You and everything else in this creation has a specific and set role to play, and therefore there is a set way of acting. The masters and rishis declare that your birth is not an accident. There is a reason why you exist. There is a meaning behind your incarnation that is of cosmic significance. Dharma is more than just acting morally, it is about walking the right path. But without a rulebook, people can have all sorts of ideas of what Dharma is. It is a free-for-all where people can make up whatever they want and call it righteous. In the Mahabharata, Duryodhana sees Dharma as conquering your enemies and achieving personal success. But Yudhishthira sees it as virtue and causing the least harm. The various opinions are addressed by Krishna in the Gita. When we are placed in the Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness, we gain spiritual intelligence where we see what is right and what is wrong. When we are caught in Rajaguna, the mode of passion, we become confused about the right course of action. And when we descend into tamas or ignorance, we see unrighteousness as righteousness, and righteousness as unrighteousness. In other words, we actively seek out the wrong thing, thinking that it is right. The challenge of life, therefore, is to remain in the elevated state of sattva guna. Living a sattvic lifestyle means gaining control over our emotions and mind. This leads to discrimination, which in turn allows us to see what is the right course of action in our lives. Hindu practices and regulative principles are designed to do exactly that. The emphasis on yoga and meditation, the reading of the great scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the performance of temple rituals and festivals, the chanting and singing of mantras, taking the company of devotees, and being in the presence of the spiritual master. All of these things condition our mind and create a radically different culture which elevates and purifies us. It raises our perspective and instills higher ideals. This is what places us in a sattvic state. From here, we can gradually grow and live out a dharmic life. As we take up this path, the ability to be more conscious grows. The ability to look within increasingly manifests. We align ourselves with our soul. We align ourselves with Dharma. But this is no easy task. In fact, it is the very challenge of life. We have the guidance of scripture and the masters to point us in the right direction. But it takes deep self-analysis, humility, discipline, and real sincerity to do this work. And it is this work that actually gives us the deepest meaning to life. Dharma is an invitation to walk consciously. It is an experiential process, not an exercise in book knowledge. Fundamentalist religions look to their scripture and command that we restrain from pleasures and vices, and then ironically seek to enjoy the same pleasures in an even more extreme way in heaven. In Dharma, however, discipline and self-control are practiced not as a business deal to score points for the afterlife, but to center ourselves within. Modesty and regulation builds introspection and sincerity. It allows us to step away from the chaos of the world, from the opinions of others, and live from a place of deeper wisdom, where we can see what we have to do. Society and New Age thinkers often sell us the dream that we can be whoever we want to be. We are pumped up to follow our desires and chase our dreams. If we just believe in ourselves, we are told, you can conquer the world. It sounds so amazing and inspiring, but Dharma isn't really about that. Beauty and blessings lie not in conforming to what society expects of you, but in meeting the role that has been gifted to you. Instead of chasing ideas of what our ego may want for us, we are encouraged to carry out the role designed for our soul. When we do this, we are free to truly be ourselves. We are integrated and authentic. Every step becomes supported by the divine. Krishna states, it is better to do one's dharma imperfectly than do another's dharma perfectly. This is because our dharma is tailor-made to our deepest nature. When we settle the turbulence of our mind and embrace it, we gain a deep sense of fulfillment rather than a cheap, superficial happiness. We become in sync with the cosmic plan, and in doing so, we are guided to the next step in our development. Dharma and spiritual growth go hand in hand. Finding your divine purpose does not necessarily mean doing something grand and dramatic. Not everyone has to stand on a podium and preach to the world. Finding your purpose can also be about doing the most normal and humblest of roles. Being a loving, devoted mother. Being that person who serves the homeless. Being the one who campaigns for change. Finding your purpose is as much about acceptance of who you are and where you are as it is about taking on new challenges. Because we are part of a cosmic order, when you do your dharma, whatever that may be, that will be good for you and indeed for the whole world. Ultimately, there is no hierarchy in dharma. We are all equal since we all have the same divine Atma within. But yet, we are not the same. We have different abilities, natures and talents. Dharma recognizes the divine role of everyone and at the same time acknowledges difference. When we look at the world today, we can see that there is a real need for individuals and society as a whole to recognize Dharma and take up the inner work of finding their purpose. We have to pull away from extremist and fundamentalist interpretations of scripture that lead to narrow-minded judgment. We have to detach from a superficial culture that feeds our ego and indulges our base desires. Instead, we have to reclaim our spiritual identity and understand the reason why we have incarnated. The closer we are to this, the more we will experience a deeper, wholesome happiness. The more righteous and moral we will become. The more we will be able to serve the world in a grander sense. Eventually, by accepting and fulfilling our Dharma, by embracing the life that has been given to us, we evolve to the highest Dharma of all, to unconditionally and exclusively love God Himself. Many thanks for listening.